Hey, Lynn.
Hey, how are
Gotcha.
you?
I'm good. You?
Good.
Good. Got my hair
So,
cut shorter than yours.
yeah, I got mine trimmed today and dyed. Yeah, I think
Mine-
mine's longer now.
Yeah,
Yours looks
right,
cute.
right up to there. Well, can't really tell in this, but
I think it looks good.
yeah. Are we the only two on?
What?
Are we the only two on?
I think so. So I think Cammy's on.
Okay. Hey, I sent you a text. How many days in the year, the school year?
Oh, good question. It used to be 190.
Yeah.
Um, but you could email Brooke. Brooke,
Okay.
email her and ask her to figure out your daily rate.
Okay. Well, how did you figure yours out?
Well, God, I did that last year. I'll have to look and see if it comes out with 190 days. Let me grab my phone.
Okay.
So then some of this COVID money that's coming in, is any of it for like the plexiglass and things like that? Or is it more for the virtual training or?
It's totally up to us. There's a list. It's about 40 pages long that we can use.
Okay,
ESSER funds are called, ESSER.
yeah, because 40,000 is gonna be gone pretty fast.
Well, 12,000, let's go.
Well, probably closer to 13. What about those two on maternity leave?
Yeah,
And the subs would have to have it because they'll be doing the teaching. I think that's gonna run more like 13 by the time everybody that should take it takes it.
yep.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Gee, Chris, long time no talk.
Right?
Our last meeting ended over an hour ago.
Sure is a shame about our capital. I mean, the whole business is a shame, but this is just getting,
Anarchy.
yeah.
Sativa, if you're 608-585-2095, I can see that you're trying to talk, but we can't hear you. You're not
Nope,
muted.
just joined, so it should be
Okay.
good.
Awesome.
Okay. Sweet.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think I'm going to share my screen, everybody, so that I can see and type at the same time. I have some charts and graphs on it this time. Didn't I type the number and I put you yet? I think that's what I had. I've been doing a lot of counting this week. I just went through the whole survey. And for the parents that answered, my students will be online, 100%. I took their number. And if they said not online, then I didn't. But some of them had both marked. And so I just took half the kids. Because I'm like, okay, I don't know how else to do it. So that's where I got 24 students are only online. So,
Well, I know, like Susan said, she will, their family will do whatever.
I could not sleep last night. It's happened like 3 times this week. This week and last week, I just lay there like.
I didn't get much sleep either. We had a relative who was not responding when I got back from the cabin. I had a phone message to call this relative out in Idaho, and she'd been trying to get a hold of my mom's cousin, who has no family, never married. All of her siblings are gone, and is in Madison and hasn't answered the phone for 4 days.
Oh no.
She was in the hospital in May for shortness of breath, which none of us knew about. And then the stuff was going on in Madison, and I thought, you know, John's not home, he's up at the cabin. I thought, I'm not going down there by myself. I mean, she doesn't live in the best neighborhoods. So then I finally did end up calling the non-emergency police number, and they said, yes, we will go, but it could be a while. Well, I was up most of the night.
Yeah.
And then I called back this morning at 6:30. And then it was about an hour they called, and she was home. She and her cats were fine. There was an issue with her phone. I mean, so thank goodness. I mean, you kind of start to think that, and I mean, we have no phone numbers. This is a woman that doesn't share anything. So it's like,
Yeah.
I said, I'm coming down Friday, and we are establishing a plan. We are establishing, you know, when we're going to communicate, and you're going to give me your neighbor's number.
Yeah, that's what I did.
You know, and I have the same issue with my mother. You know, she doesn't pick up the phone and call, and she's of course got that Frontier.
All right, I'm going to get the meeting started. So for those of you who arrived a little later, 24 students online only from the survey. We do have 2 UV light boxes in the school already. They are in both the science rooms. So if we had to sterilize anything, that's a possibility that we can use. One of the things, we can get like hand sanitizer, but we're gonna be getting a 50-gallon bucket. So if, don't let anybody dump their containers out. We'll use them, or we might have to buy empty containers. And I just wanted to put in there that we do have in the building 1,500 pediatric non-washable masks, so they're one-time use, and 1,500 15-wash masks. And we do have 2,000 coming from DPI. So in dealing with Amber Birch, she's been very helpful on the PPE. We need to find out how many washes that they have. Some of them are a 20-wash mask, or a 15, or a 10. Like the pediatric, they're paper. You use them once and you throw them out. So that will help us flesh out how many more we need. And then, yes, one day this week earlier, I asked specific case counts for, so this is for Wisconsin. So of the people that were younger than 10 years old, there were 810 children that had caught COVID. 23 were hospitalized. 2 of those were in intensive care, and none of them died. Also in the state of Wisconsin, from 10 to 19, 1,871 had tested positive, 47 were hospitalized, 3 were placed in intensive care, and none of them died either. So then you get to the 20 to 29-year-olds, and 7 of them passed away. But my point is that we teach 10, less than 10 to 19-year-olds, and chances are if they do catch COVID, they're not going to pass away from it. They might be hospitalized, but the rate of hospitalization is lower than it is for, if you look at the obviously 90-plus-year-olds, 445, but 150 of them, that's a third of them were hospitalized. So, and a third of them passed away. So the chances of them catching COVID are whatever they are, but the chances of them dying from COVID are very small. And I think we need to promote some of that. This is the same exact chart. Excuse me. I don't know why I have it in there 2 times. I don't think this link's going to work. Sorry, I had somebody else look at it. And then this is the percent of COVID-19 cases resulting in hospitalization within the age group. So as of, again, 6/22, 0 to 9-year-olds that were hospitalized were only 3% of the kids, and 10 to 19-year-olds were 3% of the kids. So again, we know none of them passed away, and only 3%. So out of the 100 kids that caught it, 3 of them went into the hospital. So again, that's good when you're talking about educating kids. They might catch it, but they're not going to go in the hospital and they're not going to pass away. So again, positives that we need to think about. Does anybody have any comments or questions on my?
So if a student would get COVID, and it would happen that we took their temperature here at school or whatever, like midday or whatever, and then they get tested and it's positive, does the whole school have to go in quarantine for 14 days?
We don't know. That would have to be up to DHS. That's probably a good question. We have a meeting with her on Friday again, or next Friday, I believe it is. No, next Friday is July. It's still in this month. And some of those things we don't know. So if it was, if we said the kids all the kids, if they rode in a bus together,
Okay.
if they left their room, what we're trying to do is keep the kids in the same cohort or same group.
Mhm.
So it would definitely be all the kids in that group would probably be quarantined, but whether or not they would shut the whole building down, I have no idea. We just don't know that yet.
Yeah, because with some of the bigger plants they have,
Right.
but so, okay.
What about if you have a staff member that's immunocompromised, but it is somebody that comes in contact with the student because they teach them? How would you handle that?
Well, that person would have to, if they've been exposed, if I'm understanding the rules correctly, that they would ask that you self-quarantine for 14 days. In which case you would have to teach from home, especially if you're not, when you get sick, you're sick, so that's different. But if you're asked to quarantine, then we're gonna expect as best we can to still teach. Otherwise we might have to quarantine 6 teachers, and then we have nobody. We would have to send kids home because we wouldn't have enough people here in the building to teach.
Mhm.
If they do catch it, then of course you have to live through work through that whole process. You're going to get sick. You're going to have the whatever. And then once you're symptom free, I guess you have 14 days, and it's up to the health department whether or not you can come back to work. But bare minimum, if you've been exposed, they're asking people to self-quarantine for 14 days.
Okay.
And then we would, of course, quarantine the students that had been exposed. So I don't think the process would be different for anybody, any adult. If I was exposed, I'm not immunocompromised, and if I was exposed to a student, I would imagine they'd want me to stay home and stay away from other people.
Mhm.
So the hope that we have is that if you're compromised but you've been wearing a face shield or a face mask, that will help your system to not catch it.
Yeah, true.
All right, any other questions about the information? I swear I had a different one of these, I apologize. All right. So the discussion of the DPI forward, and I did link it here. And what I wrote after is that Ithaca does and decides what's best for Ithaca. This is a guide. And what's happened is that a lot of the people that are running the media are not taking it as a guide. They're taking it as, oh, now we're working. So I don't know how many of you read the whole thing. I just shared with Linda that I did read the whole thing. But nowhere in the 87 pages, see, it's not 87, it's only 83 pages. And these last 2 pages aren't even full, so we're not counting those. But nowhere in here does it say you have to follow this. Very much so it says that this is a guide. These are suggestions, they're guidelines. These are considerations of how to use the resource. So, and then the thing that they want to emphasize in the process is that there's several goals of returning to school, and the #1 goal is to keep students and staff physically safe. And #2 is caring for the social, emotional, and mental health needs of students and staff. So then #3 is learning. So I think it's important to note that that's our #1 goal. These goals I can live behind. But wherever they say, they gave lots of suggestions for physically distancing, and some kids might have to study from home, and we get all that, but these are scenarios and it's not an exhaustive list. And following our examples, and then they give several examples and ways to physically distance and do instructional and virtual instruction at the same time. But again, we get to set up what we want to do at Ithaca, what's best for our kids and our staff. So I just wanted to have everybody realize that we're not this isn't our plan now. This is a way to assist us work through our plans. Did anybody have any questions about that? Okay, thank you. So for when I went through and read this, one of the first things it mentioned is creating subcommittees to assist us with the work. Some districts have their entire plan all fleshed out and it's already posted, and that's what they're going to do. And that happens in large districts. They have 300 administrators and everybody gets a little piece of the pie and then everybody works on it. And I'm willing to be on every single one of these committees, but I can't always do all the research. So I have a bus group started. I think we need to beef up the technology. Adam's pretty much got that under control, but now we're adding some things to it. So last night in the board meeting, the board approved us buying Schoology through Certainty, and now we need training. And so that's a new technological advance that we need training on. So that's going to be in there. I put down practice and procurement. I called it that way because that's cleaning and getting the stuff we need to clean with and to make sure everybody has the shields and face masks and stuff. So to me, that's kind of frank. Mental health and SEL, social emotional learning. I think we should have a team working on what we need to do for us as staff and for the kids to make sure that everybody's mental health needs are addressed. Communication and translation. When we have a plan, it needs to be communicated well and translated so that our Hispanic speaking parents and students understand the plan. And then food service. And that's another odd one out there because we don't have our own food service, but we still serve food. So I wanted to know what everybody thought about breaking into these subcommittees.
Yes, we need it.
And maybe I missed something. I mean, if there's something like, wow, you didn't even mention this.
Do you want us to volunteer for a certain one, or are you going to just want us to choose one?
I think that would be great if I can write somebody's name next down to each one. I'm by default, I already have this one started, so Does anybody want something?
I'll be mental health.
Sherry, right?
Yes.
Carrie will take number 3.
Carrie, you're gonna take practice and procurement?
Yep.
Thank you.
What was there a communication one in there?
Communication translation?
Okay, I'll go on that one because I think, and also to communicate to the community
Right,
how things are gonna look.
right.
When you said about the cleaning, Julie, I know you said Frank, then do you need someone yet for that, or is that it? You've got
No,
Frank?
we can have as many people on there. I'm just thinking he's gonna head that one because he's the one that's gonna be
Sure.
buying everything
Sure.
through his budget. But if you want to be on that one, Mary Beth, you can.
That or any other one you need me on?
Well, it's up to you.
Because I'm not seeing exactly what you need and I've forgotten already, so.
You're on- I am sharing my screen if you want to see it.
No,
and
that's
I'm on the-
okay. No, you don't have to do that, Julia. It's just that I've forgotten all the ones that you mentioned. So anyone you feel you need me on, you just stick me there.
Well, we don't have anybody on food service, so how about if I give you food?
Sure. I like
Thank you.
food.
Yeah, so do I. All right. And again, it's not a requirement or anything. I'm just thinking that if we need to have somebody write something up or we need to have things written down, whatever, it's just nice to have a go-to person. So, all right. So my thought process on these committees is that you're really going to concentrate on what needs to happen. Like give us some action steps. What do you think we should be doing in this area? You know, who do we need to talk to in this area? Maybe make some contacts. You know, Sherry, I know that Shelley and Meredith would be obvious contacts for you. We do have a mental health team. Carrie, again, Frank would be helpful for your area. I'm just going to put Adam's name next to technology. And mind you, all the admin, share included, are all, I got to type Adam, not admin, Adam. We're all on all of these. We understand what's going on with a lot of it, but it's just too much for, you know, little administrative team to do. And I really don't know exactly what we need from each committee, but if I have questions, then I have a go-to person. All right, what, does anybody have any questions? I don't want to go too fast.
Julie, I can be on the practice and procurement. This is Kara.
Thanks, Kara.
Julie, I'll be on the mental health.
Lynn?
Yep.
Okay. So while y'all are thinking, so yesterday we received an email from Mike about a CNN article where they want us to do, I don't remember exactly what it was, but 90 days of free play. So I'm like, well, that'll take us to Christmas. We'll be good then. You know, and what astonished me was in the article, it said up to 2017 that up to like 69% of teenagers have depression or anxiety already.
I was gonna say, that's part of mental health. I like that one. Yeah.
Yes. And that's something we really truly are going to need to address. And we're going to, not just with the kids, but with the staff too. You guys know I'm a very huge mental health advocate, having mental health issues myself. I need that to be addressed. I can't just let that one go. And I don't know if it's morning circles. I don't know if it's a an area of the building where kids can go and ask questions. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but it needs to be fleshed out. And the other thing is that we have been working really hard as a mental health team to get some things on our website, and we're gonna be developing that over the summer a little bit more. So especially if anybody wants to refer a child or themselves for mental health screening, we have a process for that. We just haven't gotten it 100% written out and all that kind of stuff. So that's all in the works. All right, thanks everybody. And I don't really have like jobs for you, just, you know, if you feel there's something you should be doing in that area, go for it. All right. On Monday, I sent you a tool. I think it was Monday. It might have been yesterday. I'm getting confused again. And what it was a spreadsheet that this kid named Ari made. Does anybody remember that? Video from him and his mom.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I haven't had a chance to play with the actual tool, but I did watch the video and send it to everybody. So I've been taking notes and everybody's been making fun of me because apparently Julie can only walk 1 square at a time. Because I count how many square feet there are in a room. So maybe I should have scanned this and sent it to you guys. When I was looking, I tried to concentrate just on elementary, just for sanity's sake. When I looked at the upper elementary rooms, and then I looked at the numbers in the upper elementary rooms. So the numbers in the rooms, so I'm gonna just start with 501, which happens to be Kira's room. She's gonna have 13 kids, and in a room her size, we can physically distance 13 kids 6 feet apart. Same thing with 502, 503, 506, 523. Jenna's room, 522, does not usually have a huge contingent of students in it. She usually pulls them in one-on-one, and she does a lot of push-in. The kindergarten 4K is got 28 total, but it's 13 and 15. Her room is big enough, but I don't know if you can make them sit still long enough. So, and Denise also has 14 kids in her caseload. I'm pretty sure, but I haven't done the actual calculator work, that we can fit all the kids in there, socially distanced, if the health department will let us put that many kids in a room. That's my big caveat. I don't know if they'll let us. Right now, they keep saying up to 50% capacity. I don't know if that means for the building, for the room. You know, that's kind of vague for a place like Ithaca. We have all these rooms. We should be able to put kids in everywhere. And then to continue, sorry. Third grade, both third grades have too many kids. First of all, Shauna has a smaller room and she's at 15 students. Sarah's got 16 students. So those rooms are, her room's a little bigger. She can fit more kids, but it's still almost too many for the room. But 110, 111, 112, 114 are all good for the number of students that they have. 105 is choir. We might need to use that for overflow from third grade. So maybe each third grade room would have 10 kids, and then we'd have 10 kids in 105. So I'm very confident that, especially since I know that so far there's 24 kids and I didn't have time to differentiate what grades they were all in, I just counted kids. If you're taking about 10% of those kids out, that's 2 or 3 kids out of the elementary period. So I'm thinking that, in my opinion, we can have all the kids in elementary here all day, every day, with some shifting of responsibilities and classes and maybe even classrooms. So I thought that was awesome.
It's just then you have to address the meal times and things like that, because then they can't all congregate together. They can't all be in the hallways.
Right.
So there's still quite a bit of juggling that needs to be done.
Yep. The other thing is that, those would be considered like cohorts. Those kids are with each other and only with each other all day, every day. And, if they were to go eat or to go, especially the little ones, we're pretty sure we're going to have to set the gym up for people to eat in, but we might have to talk to food service and ask them how they're thinking it'll work. Maybe they'll deliver door to door. And that way, the people that are delivering are all gloved and masked and everything, and they're just delivering what the kids ordered right there, and then there's no traveling and no travel time and no intermingling of kids. Does anybody have any questions on that? All right, then going on to the middle school, I also believe we can have the middle school here, all the kids. Our numbers with the middle school are a little bit concerning. The rooms in the middle school are small. So 201, 202, and 203 are all the same size, and they can fit 13 to 15 kids. And again, I haven't used my wonderful tool yet. But 6th grade has 28 students, 7th grade has 32 students, and 8th grade has 33 students. Chris Willis's room also would hold 13 to 15. If you divide those all in half, that's at least 15. 6th grade will be okay. 7th grade would have a few extras, and 8th grade would have a couple extras also. Sherry's room is the largest room, and we can have almost 20 kids in there. So we might, and again, I haven't used the tool, but I think we can, there's a couple of different options. Michelle Wabshall's room is much larger and will hold 20 kids easily. So we could put a smaller number in one of the other rooms and put 20 kids in Michelle's room. She would have to give up her room, but she only has 10 students. She could even share Jill Pinkstaff's room, or we could have Jill Pinkstaff not have a room because she's also got a very low number of students, and most of her classes are high school. We can put them in the high school. So not saying anything's set yet, but these are all ideas that I've been kind of tossing around in my brain. Again, those kids would stay in the room all day, every day. And when it was time for them to go not go, but maybe they have Fayed or something, or maybe they get Fayed every day, no matter what. Maybe they would have class outside if possible, like one day a week. One of those classes can be outside on the picnic tables. Again, we don't quite know, but those are all options.
Now, Julie or anyone else, is the requirement still necessary if you have like certain safety guards in place in each of the classrooms, like perhaps a splash guard, or is that still what they're suggesting as far as distancing, even if you had some, protective things in each classroom?
No, there's never been a requirement for splash guards. They make people feel safer, and for people like at the front desk who see 100 new people every day, it's suggested, but it's never been mandated that people have anything. My theory, go ahead.
But could that be a way of not having to like separate a class, like the third graders perhaps? I have no idea as far as, safety wise, what they're suggesting, but could that be a way of keeping those kids together?
It could be.
Yeah, she's asking if they're in like a cubby or something, then if they can be closer together. And I'm guessing not, because even if you had the plexiglass, you'd still have this issue.
Right, touching and all that kind of stuff. I think it's gonna take a lot of creative, moving of desks and things. Like one of the things they suggested is that the teacher's desk faces the same way all the kids' desks are. So if your desk is in the front of the room, your back should be to your students, because you don't want them all coughing toward you. Your face should be away from them. And that's just I mean, then I'd put my desk in the back of the room, of course, or I'd make the kids all turn around. Either way, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to use a chalkboard or something, so that's, that was one of the things. We did mention earlier in the thing to have every kid have their own shield. I think it's silly. If they're in a room all day, they're exchanging germs just by breathing in the same air. And for the fall, it'll be nice and warm and we can have windows and fans and keep the air circulating. But come winter, if we're not through this by then, they've been, all exposed to each other and breathing everything in. And you can't tell me little kids are going to keep masks on. So those are all things we still have yet to figure out. But for the physical room and the ability to put enough kids in it to actually have a class, I think it's really doable. And like I said, third grade is my only concern, but there's, Kyle has a room right there that we could put, we can glean off 10 kids from those 2 rooms, and those kids are remote. There's somebody in there. There's a paraprofessional that sits in there with them, and then that's just their station, and their teachers rotate, and they have a computer in front of them, and they're listening and watching what the teacher's doing in the other room, all at the same time. It's asynchronous. It's all going on at the same time. They just happen to be in a different room doing it. And then that wouldn't be fair to the kids to always be the odd man out. So the teachers should rotate from one room to the next room every once in a while. And then we talked about middle school, all the teachers rotating. Let the kids stay just like they would be in an elementary classroom, but the teachers would rotate in or out. We wouldn't have to use lockers then. The kids could have all their own stuff. They could leave it all in the same room. There's no intermingling in the hallway. There's no passing time that we'd have to worry about. We'd have to get them up and moving, of course. That should be set up by the SEL group. But then they're only exposed to their own peers and the teacher that comes in and teaches for the hour. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. So one of the things we did mention now it's coming back to me, is that perhaps we can have some shields for the teachers' desks, because if a kid comes up to your desk, they all one cough and your stuff's all been exposed. So I was thinking creating some sort of a shield, plastic or otherwise, so that the teacher would have some way of keeping some of their stuff touch-free from the kids, especially the little ones. They don't know how to keep their hands to themselves. Well, maybe middle school instead of elementary, but they're kids, they touch everything. So that is something that we can consider in our notes. So I'm gonna move on to high school. Chris and Meredith have been working on the list. I don't know, Chris, have you had a chance to talk about room-to-room movement yet?
No. Well, a little bit, but there's a lot that's going to go into that. Because we have kids that could be freshmen, sophomore, juniors in third hour, and then they split into different groups, fourth hour.
So that's our biggest concern. as an admin team is that those kids are gonna intermingle the most. But they're also older and more mature and should be able to realize when they need to wash their hands more often and, you know, keeping masks on when they move from room to room. We might have to have classes in different rooms. So Carrie's room and Melanie's room are both too small to have more than like 12 kids in it. So that's bothersome.
Yeah, and I think Carrie had like some of the highest amount of kids in her class.
Yeah. I have that number right here. So we might have to abscond with somebody else's room to do it. Yeah, Wanter's got high number. I tried to highlight them and I might have missed a few. Carrie's got 14. Oh, she's pretty good. 10, 12, 14.
Oh, yeah.
And these are a little old. She already adjusted some of these. So English 9 and oh, they're both 15. Maybe she did it right on the sheet. Meredith, you're on the call, aren't you?
I am.
Awesome. Did you change this? Did you share this with me? Like,
Yeah, I've been working on it the last 2 days, trying to even them out some more. So
okay.
I'm still working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So some classes we aren't going to have problems at all with the number. So like Mr. Herbst has got, his biggest class is 13 and he's got a pretty decent sized classroom. Mr. Trapon's biggest class is 15 for Algebra 2, but the rest of them are under 9. We might have to consider as a prevention thing, maybe we don't have a MakerBot class with only 3 kids in it. We need that room and that hour, we don't know. There's only 3 in Spanish 3. Maybe we can't have Spanish 3 or 3/4. We don't know. Like I said, I'm just throwing out ideas because we might need to use Mrs. Pope's room or Mrs. Pope for some other class because we have overflow. When there's 25 kids in chem, there's no way, although he's got a pretty big room. How many did we say we could fit into there? 24, right?
Yeah, it was mid-20s, I thought.
Yeah. Because by default with the science room, you can go in those cubbies and they're self-isolating in the holes between. And then he's got a classroom. So he can get pretty many kids in there. Whether or not they'll stay away from each other is another question. But so, I appreciate that Meredith is working on this and trying to even it out so that there's no huge classes, but he only has chemistry once. And so he might have to go, except for lab days, he might have to use a bigger room. Is that
Right.
going to Mr. Tomey's room or using the band room that hour? We don't know. Those are the big rooms. So high school are my sticking point right now, and Chris and Meredith are working on it. All right. Any questions about the number of kids, where they would be located?
I just have a quick question. I just know for for Sammy, he's going to be, I think, in geometry next year.
Okay.
And yet he'll be in middle school. And I know last year when he was doing Algebra 1, he was going in between like a 7A and a 7B. So I don't know, for his schedule for this year, would he be, going to the high school for geometry and then coming back and going in between the 8A and the 8B rooms? And is that okay, or is that just something?
I don't know. Those are the things that throw a wrench in our works, right?
Right, right.
We have to do what's best for him for health. If he's got any underlying conditions, I don't know. And, it's kind of based on what you as the parent wants.
Okay.
You said he was in algebra this year, so he'd be in geometry.
Right. And like I said, I know to make the schedule work, he was in both 7A and 7B. So, and are there other kids coming up that are going to be in middle school in that same situation, you know, are we gonna have some other kids that are mixing too?
Yeah, we are. All right, good point, thank you.
And then that does throw a wrench into keeping kids in that core group, because then they would be bringing back all the stuff from where they went. And so that whole group then would be exposed to whoever was in the geometry room.
Right.
And that would be kind of the same with the music room or music stuff, wouldn't it? Since we have mixed classes.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to do choir in the elementary rooms. They're not gonna have choir, they're gonna have music
Ah. Gotcha.
right in their classrooms. Instead of them moving from their classrooms to the choir room, the choir will be in the classrooms. I think is one of the things we've tossed around.
Yeah.
But for middle school, you know, like Mary Beth has seventh and eighth grade band. So that means they're all mixing together for that class.
Yeah, and those are the things that we're talking about.
And that could look different for this year. I think, you know, Mary Beth, I think you have to be kind of prepared for that. It is going to look different.
I know, I'm trying to.
I know, but we can get through this.
We will.
That's what you have to, what you have to really focus on, that it may be different for a year. And if we don't do it differently, it may carry on for longer if they don't come up with a vaccine. So
right.
There are some things that I think
Are going to change.
Are going to change. And it's not necessarily what we want to see or want to have happen, but I think we have to be realistic. And you have to put that hat on.
I'm already making one.
Maybe you can say I will survive.
I know it's gonna be weird. That's all there is to it. I mean, I was very excited when I found out, hey, we can actually have all the elementary kids in their rooms, just about all of them in the same room all day. How safe can, you know, they're only with that one small group of kids and they're all their friends and they can go to recess and play with them and do, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, and then why do we have band?
Band involves spittle.
Yes, I brought that up at the board meeting last night. I'm sorry. And everybody's like, yep, it does. I'm like, I don't know. I played the violin. I'm sorry. We didn't have a lot of spit going on there. So, yeah, I know. We'll talk more tomorrow, Mary Beth.
Sure. Friday. I think, yeah.
Yep. All right. So last year, I want to get this documented so I don't forget. So last year when they took middle school took high school classes, sometimes the kids had to flip mixing up A and B classes. So we're going to have to look into that. All right.
Yeah, we're also looking into that. You know, we missed almost 3 months of school this year.
Yeah. All right, and then I was just writing, as I was writing, again, from the guidance from DPI, potential professional development that we might need. So I wrote Schoology first because the board just approved last night that we were gonna have Schoology. Apparently I didn't need this. So that's going to be planned soon. I got an email this morning already to sign the contract and I haven't had, my printer didn't work, so I had to move on to the next thing. So the board also approved that we can take needed days of professional development out of the calendar. They might have been PLC, in-service PD. We marked them that way intentionally so we could do what we needed to with them. And we might need to yank some of those and put them in the summer so that the teachers have time to learn Schoology and get things there that they need so that when school starts, they're ready. So that's in the works, if you weren't listening to the board meeting last night.
And then the dates that we would have had it during the school year, those would be basically vacation days then.
Yeah, for the teachers.
Yeah.
So moving school year, I'm just gonna say PD to summer, and then dates to be determined. We're working on that currently. We should have more information by the end of the week. Then abuse and neglect is something that we always have to do, but we should be a little bit more cognizant of it, because we're gonna have kids that haven't been out in the public for perhaps 6 months. And a lot of our kids depend on school for their food and safety, their safe place. One of them sleeps here every day because they don't get any sleep at night. The other thing I think we need to be more aware of, and maybe PD on, is suicide prevention. We've had a lot of stuff on trauma sensitive schools. So maybe on the mental health team and SEL can look into those two things. If there's things that they're putting out specifically to reintegrate kids back into the school district, that would be helpful. Any new technology that we're gonna have, so that lower elementary might use Seesaw. I don't even know what that is, other than something that you sit on and it goes up and down. And so they might need training on that. There's a few FERPA and therefore SIPA regulations. So these are the child protective things that we should be a little bit more aware of as a staff, because if we're talking about tape recording things, we have to make sure that there's kids that we don't have permission to share their image. Then they need to not be in the view of the video. We need to be careful when we screen kids with temperatures, because that's a medical issue then. We have students that have high health needs, and if they need to stay home, that's fine, but we can't be saying, well, that's because so-and-so has this XYZ. Nobody needs to know all that information. I think us as adults need to brush up on some of that legal stuff, that we're not doing things incorrectly and telling people things they don't need to know. And then these were suggestions, these last few are suggestions from the guidance that DPI put out. So creating independent learner profiles. That's when you do a test at the beginning of the school year to figure out, okay, where is this kid academically, and then writing a plan for that kid. It's an independent learner profile. It's like an IEP for a kid. But they're just no disability kid. Place-based learning or project-based learning. That's the one I really hope the middle school and high school gets into. And again, this is suggested PD. If it's stuff that you guys are interested in, that's why I typed it in here. Look at it and see what it's all about. So project-based learning is really good for, you're making a project in some way, shape, or form. So it's easy to take tech ed and do that. So Mr. Favreau's class has a project, and they have to create a three-dimensional object that holds water for 5 minutes using 5 different materials. And what does that look like, and how are they going to do it? And then the English teacher then says, okay, well, you write that all up. You're going to create a list. You're going to annotate with these kind of annotations. You're going to use these for reference tools, and you're going to quote them correctly, and that's what you're going to be graded on for English. And Mr. Favreau grades on how well they work together and did the project. And then the math teacher takes their math and says, okay, well, you didn't do the computation correctly on how much tensile strength there is on that bladder that you used. So it's one project that a group of students worked on, and they all got credit for it, and it's good for 3 different classes. And they did it all on their own. That's project-based learning. I don't know the difference between that and place place-based learning? Does anybody know? So that's something I
Place
need.
space, Julie, place space is when you're here.
Oh,
You know, you're in a place to learn versus project based. You could do that at home. If under, you know, if say it was for a hands-on experience, if someone else had the skills to help you, you could do that project elsewhere. You know, that's like 4-H is project-based learning.
okay. Thank you. That's why I was confused about place-based. All right, UDL is Universal Design for Learning, and that is something that special ed has used for a long time. And I found out about 5 years ago that not everybody else knew what UDL was. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, really, you don't get it? So it's basically designing your what you need to teach, and from the ground up, you build it so that it's differentiated immediately. So I'm going to go back to the container I just built. So, you know, for somebody that has a language deficiency, you're going to make sure that everything's translated into Spanish for them. And then you're going to explain it to our person that helps the students with English learning. And so that person fully understands. So that's right in your day of planning. You're embedding all these different levels of learning right in your ground up planning. So that, and if a kid is gifted and talented, then they have to make a cover for it too. What does that look like? What could it look like? Or they have to plan an additional step because you have to challenge that kid to do that extra. So again, that's just UDL. It's how you design learning so that everybody has access to it. And then maybe we need training on that. I don't know. And then sensory learning or awareness of sensory issues. So Rose Cahoot didn't think of this, but you know, we do have kids with sensory issues. You know, the kids that don't like the bright lights, or there's a buzzing in their ears, that they can't sit next to the window, or I hate people that tap. We all have our own sensory issues, but if you have a kid that's worried about having something over their face and they feel like they're suffocating, that's a sensory issue. You know, or they're, we have, I don't want to use specific kid. Anyway, learning about sensory issues for ourselves so that we are able to help students, especially when a kid's not coming in on a very frequent basis. We still need to make sure that, you know, all of their senses are being used in their homework. So sensory goes a couple different ways. And then the integrated or collaborative lessons, I'll pick the middle school group. Didn't they do they did a cooking thing. Paula had them double the recipe or half the recipe. They got credit for the baking for Melissa and Paula for the math. So that's just a collaborative lesson. They integrated 2 different concepts and they graded it once. Basically, they did one thing and they got credit in 2 classes. So how to do that or how that's going to look, I don't know. But again, I just threw these on there as potential professional development that the staff might need to feel more successful for this school year. Is there anything that anybody feels I missed or should add to this or take off from this?
I do think one thing that was shared with the board last night, and I think it was Chris and Kathleen might have shared it together. DPI will be watching a lot closer this coming school year as far as that the criteria is being met. In other words, we did a very good job. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants and everybody really pitched in, did well. But now with having probably both types of learning that will be going on, DPI regulations. Am I saying that right, Chris or Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay. So schools will be watched a little closer. Work will have to be done by the students. And I mean, it was supposed to be done this time too, but it's just, you know, now that they think we've had this trial time, there are going to be a few more regulations.
Yeah, that's one of the things that they did state we were gonna have to do for this school year coming up, that we did get a waiver. I thought we completed all of our hours anyway, but we completed the waiver just in case. We didn't know what it was gonna look like. So, but no waivers for next year for minutes. We have to prove to them that they are going to get the same educational minutes that we planned on before. Along with other things, but that's a big one. It's like, how do you keep track of a child on their computer at home, making sure they're on working the whole time?
And this Schoology is supposed to help with that, right, Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie, this is Kara. One other suggestion I would have for professional development would be just the safety precautions that we and the students need to carry through with for the upcoming year. We've talked a little bit about distance, but also like sharing of common items or how to conduct recess safely. I think, you know, whatever is decided about the shields or the masks, what the protocol is for that. And if some people aren't wearing them, how does that get handled? What kind of universal guidelines are we all going to adhere to? I think that we'll need to have some training with all of the safety measures that need to be accounted for.
Good one, thank you. And I think you joined that procurement team, so that would be a good thing for, that's why practice is in there. What are we gonna do? We did talk about how we are gonna wipe things down, and Frank says he has a spray, but you know, you don't wanna hand a spray to a can of kindergartners. They don't know how to even point it. So I think we're all gonna have to learn how to clean up our own messes a little bit. And it's gonna be training for the kids. How do you properly wash a pencil? How do you properly wash your hands? How do you properly wash off your desk without getting everybody else's stuff wet and dirty and all that kind of stuff? Good point, thank you. Okay, it's 4-4. Does anybody have anything else or anything that's popped up that we should be discussing?
Julian, when we've been mentioning alternative settings to conduct classes, the school forest could be an option on certain times of the year too. I don't know if we mentioned that one as an alternative space.
Okay.
And then I think those on the, well, all of us, but those on the mental health, just as you're kind of going through things and thinking about things, some of the articles that I have gotten, there has been an increase in cutting and burning of middle school and high school students, but primarily middle school. And we maybe don't have that issue here, but now as kids come back, that would be something that we would, you know, definitely want to be aware of.
What's that called again? That area right over there. Not the patio, the courtyard. Courtyard. That wasn't on our list either.
Yeah.
It's got, it will have its own Wi-Fi.
Right, the school forest is good, but it will involve then the busing.
Right.
And the cleaning of the bus and how many kids can be on the bus and.
Yep. So All right.
But you can social distance.
Yes, you can. Of course, we can only take 6 at a time on the bus. Anyway, all right, thanks, everybody. Let's talk to you next week. If you guys have specific questions, please let me know. If there's something that you feel we should be talking about, please let me know. You know, this is new for everybody. I've never done this before, so I don't feel bad when people are like, duh, Julie, you forgot this. If you're in a group and you want to meet and you need help setting up a time or a Zoom or whatever, let me know. I'll be in anybody's group that needs me. But you know, just start thinking of even if you created a list of questions to ask would be helpful. Anything else from anybody?
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
See you next week.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.